and we are back with our second part of our live stream where we are building the Lego DeLorean. A lot of great stuff with this build so far. I've really enjoyed it, and I wanted to get back to it just as soon as I could, so thus here we are. Got Doc and Marty here having a good old time, so I am anxious to get right back into it. So let's get to it. I'll go ahead and put these guys in the back. Hopefully I don't knock them over as many times as I did in the first part. So, so far we've got our DeLorean. It's actually starting to, it's coming along. Like, it's actually recognizable, I think. Like, if you shown that to me, I think I would be able to piece it together, what we have there. So it's the front you see is right here. We have the DMC logo. Everything's looking very authentic. So very excited about what's to come. The next bag we're going to be doing is bag number 6. The main build of the DeLorean itself is apparently 10 bags. And then the 11th bag is all your customization options to make it more like Back to the Future 2 and Back to the Future 3. So I'm not sure exactly how this is going to break down into how many parts or anything like that. I have a feeling that just like the Back to the Future movies themselves, that this will end up being 3 parts. So just like the Back to the Future movies, part 1, 2, and 3. Not that the versions of DeLorean will theme that way or anything like that, but we'll see. All right. Let's go ahead and and this is divided into some littler bags here for bag number 6, but there's just one bag containing parts, one larger bag that is containing the smaller ones. All right, so let's get right to it. And hopefully for this bag, we'll see some more external parts, and it's not all just kind of internal stuff for the build. So we'll see what happens. All right, we start out with a duplicated section where we do the same thing twice. I'll get this kind of back so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, got these two. I will say that this is exactly the right size of build for me. It seems like it is going by really, really quickly. It's a little bit cheaper than some of the other Ultimate Collector Series kinds of builds that I've done. And that is reflected in it being a little more brisk and a little less complicated, a little less huge too. So definitely think that this is a little more doable as a weekend project or a Saturday project. Definitely something that would keep you occupied for most of your leisure time during the day. So it's I think it's good that it breaks down like that a little easier than what we've seen in the past. A little bit more manageable, I feel. Looks like we're doing some of the side detail right around the black ridges of the back of the DeLorean. I would say it would be really fun to actually own a real DeLorean, but they say that the cars just weren't of a very good quality, weren't of very sound craftsmanship, so maybe it would be incredibly frustrating. I don't know. Although you would think the kind of space-age doors, you would almost think that that would have caught on a little bit more, that people would have thought that that was cool at the very least, and maybe felt compelled to start including that in more models and different companies and things. At least to me, it seemed really cool. Maybe you know, we look at it as such an 80s kind of idea. Maybe it already seemed a little dated at the time. I don't know. Of course, I remember a time when 90s fashion and culture seemed so modern. So I thought, wow, we've really figured it out. And yeah, we've got it this time. Everybody remembers this big lump of just flesh-colored plastic right there in the middle of the DeLorean. Oh, boy. Of course, on the internals of something like this, you're always going to see all these weird colors everywhere. And as I was explaining earlier on my live stream, it's definitely one of those deals where they do all the color separation to make it a little easier to see what you're doing on the inside of the DeLorean. At least that's what I've found with all of these styles of builds. All right, and I've already knocked Marty over once, so we'll see how many times Marty ends up taking the fall right here. And now I've knocked Doc over. There we go. All right, now if you thought the top portion of the DeLorean looked weird, yeah, the bottom, even crazier. Even nuttier down there, that's for sure. All right, looks like we're doing one of the bottom portions of the DeLorean. That's something good about any of these ultimate style builds, is that Lego never takes even details like that for granted. You'll be able to turn it over and still be able to have a very viewable model, even from, you know, lower angles. It's not like you go to the lower angle and everything just looks awful. Everything still looks pretty legit when Lego does a model like this. All right. Okay. Oh, I guess this might be some kind of tailpipe or something right here. It's kind of a funny little detail to include. I'm not 100% sure that's what it's supposed to be, so who knows? Maybe I have that wrong right there. But either way, we're going to stick it in right there near the back. Excuse me. It's allergy season. All right, then we go to the other side, and it's very hard to believe that this is a DeLorean looking at it presently, but this is turned over from the bottom, so. All right. I think everybody has a favorite Back to the Future movie. For most people, I'm sure the default answer is the first, the original Back to the Future, but I'm curious what you guys say in the chat below. What is the best Back to the Future film? For me, believe it or not, it's Back to the Future 3, but it's a little bit of a weird opinion. Maybe if I went back and watched them now, I would feel a little differently. But I do love Back to the Future 3. That's always been my favorite. I think it's because of some of the character stuff in the movie, particularly the stuff with Doc Brown. It's just very endearing and lighthearted and just, I think, done in the right spirit. So I always gravitate towards that one, as silly as it may sound. And interestingly, I think I actually missed, I actually missed a little detail on this one. I was supposed to place a different piece on the top and forgot all about it. Didn't notice it. There we go. That'll fill in some of that gappage right there that I was noticing earlier. Kind of wondering why it wasn't flush, and that, oh, there's Doc Brown goes down. Maybe he would be better on the side and Marty on the other side. Maybe that's, yeah, I think that's the better option. Okay. All good there. Here's the age-old question. Should Back to the Future be remade or get a sequel? I know how I feel about that, but you tell me, is that a thing? Should that ever even be spoken of? Is that is that a possibility in your mind? Should we ever see Back to the Future get a sequel or be remade? And who knows, maybe the answers will surprise me what I end up hearing. I don't know. I think I know how most Back to the Future fans would answer that question. I think the answer, from what I can tell, is a resounding no. That there should not be any more Back to the Future because you're more liable to ruin it. Particularly a remake. I think people would be a lot more receptive to some kind of sequel idea, maybe. But man, oh man, after seeing something like Matrix Resurrections, it kind of awakened me to the dangers of sequelizing something that's well and done. Like it actually, something that is actually what seems to have some kind of finality to it. To actually go back and manufacture a story to make it continue, even if it's not really meant to continue, there's a lot more danger in that than I had ever even perceived there to be, honestly. There's a lot more risk there because I walked away from Matrix Resurrections liking the originals less. And that is, to say that's an unfortunate effect of a new movie is an understatement. Like, that's a massive understatement. That's the last thing in the world you should ever want to accomplish. I mean, I don't know where all it went wrong, but it certainly went wrong for Matrix Resurrections. What a disaster. And no matter who's involved with it or who comes up with the script, you've always got to be careful because all it takes is just a couple of chinks in the armor, just a couple of miscalculations can throw the whole thing off. It could be something as small as someone not being available who had worked on the original music for a movie. There's just too much danger in revisiting something sometimes. Even things that should be revisited or still have more story to tell, sometimes you don't want to know what the rest of that story would be. It's just like I see a lot of people, a lot of fans pine for what George Lucas would have done for the Star Wars sequels rather than what Disney did. Well, I can about guarantee you that people would have hated those just as much as they hated the prequels. Maybe more. Everybody always thinks the grass is greener on the other side. It is not. Well, sometimes it's not. I think one of the only times it actually was the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League versus the original Joss Whedon cut. That's one of the only times when that other thing that everybody pined for so much was actually, it was actually tremendously better. But hopefully people realize that that's not a normal thing that happens in Hollywood. That was a kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a filmmaker to have unprecedented resources and access to go back and complete something. And I'm very glad that he was able to, because he deserved that opportunity. I feel he got a raw deal, and people can say what they want to about Warner Brothers, and Lord knows they're making plenty of mistakes, but they're also getting a lot right, and that's one of the things that they got right. Giving Zack Snyder the chance to craft his vision the way that he wanted it to be in the first place. The Flash, on the other hand, is an absolute mess right now. But not necessarily because there's buzz that the movie turned out bad. It's because Ezra Miller is apparently a crazy person So it's true. Zack Snyder accidentally hired a crazy person to play the Flash. It's really sad. that's that's pretty bad. Out of all the actors, who could have played the Flash, and one that you had on television that was already the perfect guy, Grant Gustin, and we picked the crazy person, the psycho. So maybe that's a little harsh. I don't mean to be like that necessarily, but I will say that I do think that Ezra Miller has some kind of problem. I'm not exactly sure what that problem is, but I hope he can get help for it. I didn't mean to seem insensitive but what I don't like is when when other people are hurt, and that's what's happened. So I do think that there is some criticism that can be very fairly thrown towards Ezra Miller. Real shame about his behavior and how he's wasted this opportunity to really hit it big in the industry. And Warner Brothers clearly loved the guy and was putting so many resources and so much behind him to make him a big star, and it didn't pan out, and won't pan out, I don't think. I don't know if anybody's seen the video of him choking out that lady at a bar, and now there's all these new allegations, and he got arrested, and it's shameful behavior. I mean, it really is. I don't think there's any defending him. I guess I would have to know the circumstances, but I mean, this happens twice. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any excuse. That's the kind of thing something like that might happen one time under weird circumstances, but you're really telling me that can happen again, just like that. And the people pressing the charges against Ezra apparently are the people he's living with, or he was living with in Hawaii or whatever. So I think that Ezra Miller I think his career is toast. I think. And rightly so, it seems. Rightly so. It seems like the guy is kind of a wreck. And he's certainly messing up the DC Extended Universe for all the people who've worked so hard to try to rehabilitate it and get it back on the right track. And I think those are the people, actually I know that those are the people who I feel the very worst for, because they didn't deserve that. They deserved a lot better. Fascinatingly, though, it's something to think about that it's possible for one person, and literally just one guy, to mess up a whole enterprise like that, like a whole film, for literally thousands of people that are working on it. There's people right now that are locked in their workstations right now, working on special effects shots of this guy as the Flash, and they're working on the psychotic person to be the Flash. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I don't know how else to describe it. They're sitting in there having to try to CGI this crazy person's face that's sitting in jail or whatever. I guess he posted bail. I don't know. And he's literally tanked the movie for these people. He's ruined it for them. Now the rumor is that Warner Brothers has had a emergency meeting to see about what to do about Ezra. And everybody likes to make fun of this position or say that it's not viable, but I mean, to me, the option is clear. You should use effects and reshoots or whatever you have to do to just replace him. Because how are they going to possibly promote this movie with this this really problematic guy as the star? It makes no sense. I don't know how they could possibly promote this movie with this guy. I mean, he's a creep. I don't I don't know how else to put it. And they're gonna bank a whole franchise moving forward, like on him. Sounds like a mess. Can you imagine how Andy Muschietti, the guy, and his wife Barbara, they're the people who did it, Chapter 1 and 2, and excellent directors, excellent producer director team. Can you imagine how they feel right now? They've been working on The Flash for years now. Michael Keaton probably wondering why on earth he ever signed up to be back in these movies if they can't even keep it together enough for the guy playing the lead role. He's going to tank this thing for everybody. And, it may not be tanked financially necessarily, but what I'm saying is, how can you build anything like from that? And Warner Brothers really needs to sit down, and if they've not talked about it yet, there really needs to be a plan for how they're going to negate this damage, because there's some serious damage that's been done. And if they let this movie in its current form, if they release this, what else is Ezra going to do before this movie comes out? What else is he going to do? Because in just a year or two's time, he keeps doing crazier stuff. What's he going to do next? And I hope that Warner Brothers is prepared to ask themselves that question, because that's a tough question. But for their own financial security, for their own viability of the DC brand, which is going to be important moving forward, Discovery, is doing the big merger, and they're going to want to focus on this. What can they possibly do to ensure that Ezra doesn't have another one of these freakouts? Are they going to have to assign a guy to him, like a security monitor that just kind of stays with him the entire time? I don't know what can possibly be done. And I have no idea what Ezra's problem exactly is. I'm just saying all this out of hyperbole and out of concern and also confusion for what the issue actually is. I don't know if it's... I have a feeling I know what the problem is, but who knows if that's it. I'd hate to comment either way. Oh well, whatever it may be. It's not good, whatever it is. But for as crazy as he has been behaving, I surely hope that he can get some help. Pray that he can get some peace, some help, that maybe possibly he can still be rehabilitated in some way. But it's long, long road. Long road. Oh, I like this. What a great little bit of transparent detail right there. Okay, hook this on. Oops. Okay. I see. So this makes up kind of the turn signal assembly on the back of the DeLorean. I like it. Plug that in right there. Now, and I love that, the kind of old 80s turn signal brake light right here combination. That is just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful representation. Now we're building the other. Of course, we'll have to do it in the reverse. Have a little bit of fun here, building some brake lights. Lovely. Lovely. brake light right here. I got ahead of myself and forgot to put the turn signal pieces. There we go. All right. I still can't get over how cool the design of these brake lights are. Like for the absolute 80s kind of look that they have. It's one of those things you take for granted, or at least I do. When I was thinking about the makeup of this car, it's just I never really thought about it. But it's iconic. It's an element of the design, especially for something as iconic as the DeLorean. So one thing about it is in the 80s, you could definitely see the brake lights. They weren't hidden. They weren't hidden. All right, so now we're going to build some side assemblies right here. Start out with some pieces. I've always liked the general vibe in Back to the Future that it's sort of like Doc Brown is when Marty asks him why his guffaw at learning that the time machine is a DeLorean. It's like Doc Brown is this older guy who's trying to overcompensate for like he's trying to be like, hey, I made a time machine out of this really cool car because I wanted it to have some style or whatever. So he goes like total like overboard with just how sporty he's trying to be. At least that's how I've always read the humor there. Like why would this old coot, why would he possibly create like this time machine out of this super at the time modern futuristic sports car? And just the throwaway line is just brilliant that Bob Gale did. God bless Bob Gale. Truly a brilliant creative mind. All right. This goes on the side there. Okay. Getting closer and closer. So this is actually the start of making the all famous black ridges that are on the back of the DeLorean. Always really exciting to see this. This is actually, honestly, aside from maybe the doors themselves, this is my favorite design element of the actual DeLorean. To me, nothing tops the weird black ridges on the back. That, to me, is the most futuristic element of the car. Those weird black ridges that just rise from the back. It's almost like I don't know, there's a Batmobile quality to it. If I was designing a Batmobile, you would have to look at it pretty close, and you could probably see some little bit of Back to the Future, DeLorean, a little bit of Lamborghini Countach, a little bit of just this and that. 60s Batmobile, perhaps. That would be part of the concoction, I think. That would be my ideal Batmobile. Needless to say, they have not created my ideal Batmobile just yet. Closest, I think, to my ideal Batmobile in film. The 89 Batmobile, yeah. Still what I consider to be the finest two-film Batmobile of them all. And nothing against the new car, because it's a beauty, and that's one of my favorite moments of the new movie. But you know, it's definitely a souped up kind of sports car. I love it. They did a great job, but just like the Tumbler before it, it's not exactly what I would do. And Zack Snyder's version, not exactly what I would do either. You know, still too, you know, still a tank. And so I don't know. I like the Batmobile to be a little fantastical. I'll be honest. I like going for those unrealistic kind of elements. I I don't want them to keep leaning towards it being some kind of military vehicle. At the same time, I also don't want it to be just a sports car, like a really souped up sports car. That's not what I want either. So I try to live between those two schools of design thought with the Batmobile. There's got to be a happy medium in there that we can get to. I just don't think we found it yet. I do feel like that, and I think that everything should be fine with it. Matt Reeves, you know, if he gets to do the Batman sequel, like I said, I think everything's all set. Then I do feel like that would be the place where, okay, we can take that really great base that they were working off of and say, all right, now we can make this just a little, like a hair, kind of lean it a little more into the fantastical right there. And just say, okay, well, this is where we can kind of plant our flag to be a little bit weirder with the Batmobile, a little bit more into that hyper reality, a little bit get away from the realism, just a tiny smidge, just a smidgen less real. Some people are looking for the reality in a lot of these things. I think I'm looking for the fantasy in a lot of these things. To me, I'm looking for the escapism. I'm not a fan of super realism in every single thing. I think it has its place, but I want to see something fantastical. I really do. And honestly, I felt like the Batman was kind of, it had those elements that I liked, those fantastical sort of elements. I actually thought those were pretty well placed in the movie. So I didn't have any issue with that, actually. This, I feel, should be making contact with something right here, and it just isn't. There's nothing right there. So I'm wondering, have I left out something down there? Let me take a very quick look and see. Perhaps I have this in slightly the wrong place. Let me look. I don't want to goop it up and then have to take the whole thing apart. I do believe I have it in slightly the wrong place. But but in what way have I messed this up? Let's see. Okay. This assembly should actually be back here on the lights. I moved it up a little too far. Yeah, it should be right back here. That explains it. Okay. Better for me to find that out now rather than later. That would be a horrid lesson to learn later on in the build. Would not be conducive to what I'm trying to accomplish here. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right, that's so much better. Fantastic. All right, now we apparently are building the steering column, the console right here, that the steering wheel and all that's mounted to. The great thing about this point in the build, now that we're through the halfway point, is everything we're building isn't just gobbledygook. It's actually, it has some sort of practical purpose, or you can tell what it's going to be or what it's building towards. There's no more just, putting what seems to be random pieces just in the middle of nowhere. Everything feels like it's building to something. Oh man, awesome. Well, you have quite a good time coming to you because this thing, man, I'm having a time with it. This is great. And so far, it is not disappointing. I'm also really impressed by the sturdiness of it because it is really, even in this form right here, just halfway built, it's really holding together. like big time. So I'm excited to see how durable this thing's going to be. I hope I can resist the urge of just, rolling it around down in the basement just all the time, trying to get it to 88 miles per hour. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, prepare to see some serious stuff. We do the family version for the live stream. This baby hits 88 miles per hour. What is it that Bob Gale said, the writer of the movie, about why they went with 88 miles per hour? He said that there was a reason, and I don't know if it was because that was like all they could get or something like out of it. There is some reason. I just can't think of what it is, but there is an actual factual reason why it had to be 88 miles per hour. One of my favorite little touches on the DeLorean is actually in Back to the Future 2, about how Doc powers it with a nuclear fusion reactor that it's just called Mr. Fusion, like Mr. Coffee. And you just put like biodegradable waste in there and it just creates nuclear energy. I mean, that's just brilliant. That has always tickled me like to no end. And it's such a 80s, 90s joke, like Mr. Coffee joke about a nuclear reactor. But I kind of think that increases my enjoyment of the joke, like even now. Things that seem dated or that like unfortunately date a movie for the first 10 or 15 years after like 20 or 25 seem charming. Funny how that works, but that seems to be the rule. You have to wait a certain amount of time and then, oh yeah, it's charming. Oh yeah, it's nostalgic. Oh, I wouldn't have it any other way, But that's not often how people initially feel about these things. Okay, now fitting this in here. This actually mounts to this part right here because that fits. Oh yeah, that is a terrific fit. And now we have all these studs to play with for the steering wheel and all the different accoutrement that's going to be mounted right there. All right. And for this next section, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over because I'll forget and then I'll be confused about what I'm doing. I'm telling you, the bottom of this looks like some flower children got a hold of it. At least for now, that's what it looks like. I'm sure going to get tidied up quite a bit, but hilarious until we actually finish it out. Okay. I got no idea what I'm building right now. I'm back in the dark. All right. Oops, wrong piece. There we go. All right, so we have that. That's just gonna plug in right here to make that back fender. Okay, right there. Okay, that plugs in. Then two big gray flats are gonna go right over top of it. Well, come on. There we go. So that kind of cleans that up pretty nicely actually at the bottom. And I think we're doing a little bit more of that tidying up right here, at least as far as I can tell, because I'm going to block out some of those unsightly little details. Once again, it looks like we're going to have practically nothing left in terms of extra pieces. As I always say, nowadays, if you have anything that looks significant left over, yeah, you missed something. They are not given, they're not being generous with extra pieces these days. It's just not a thing at all. There we go. Now we can use those black flats that I was trying so desperately to misuse earlier. There we go. Makes a nice solid piece. Okay. And our last little mini build that we do for this bag. That's right, friends. We are already almost through our very first bag of the second part. Like I said, I do expect this to end up being probably a 3-part deal, just like the movies themselves. Even if, I don't know yet, I'm not 100%, but I do expect it to end up being a 3-part. Whoop, I'm throwing stuff around. Okay. Got our drum lacquered silver. Another drum lacquered silver. Bada bing, bada boom. All right. Yep, this is another kind of cleanup piece. I think this is supposed to be for it in flight mode, like kind of the bottom of it. Yeah. All right. So these bars right here are just going to plug in to these little grabbers here. I do not know the technical term. And look at that. Just nudges right in. Cleans up nicely. Kind of distracts from all those different colors and all of that. And I did forget a couple little blue pieces right here. So let me get those on. That just kind of fills that in, or that doesn't look so flat. Helps the detail out just a little bit. And I'll show you our fine selection of extra pieces. Look at that. Look at all these wonderful, tiny little extra pieces. Lego, oh, how you spoil us, as always. All right. On to bag number 7. Bag. There we are. Wow, steering wheel's really big. I'm so used to building things that are minifig scale. When I see a giant steering wheel like that, it kind of freaks me out. I never can quite pin in my head what scale this car would, like the Ultimate Collector Series cars, like what the actual numerical scale for them is. I always sort of think they're in 1/12 scale. If you're a scale nerd like me, if you're into model kits and action figures, then you know 1/12 scale should mean that we're looking at a 6-inch, like if like the people would be a 6-inch, would be 6 inches tall. That would be compared to the vehicle itself. So at least I think that would be right, because let me show you an example. Let's see. All right, Spider-Man, basic 6-inch action figure right here. This is the retro release of Spider-Man. Here's the steering wheel. This, to me, is about right. Just looking at the steering wheel for Spider-Man's hands, the size, I think this is about correct. So, to me, yeah, 6-inch scale of some sort, 1/12 scale. So, if I turn the car back over, let me get it. and just curious about a little something. I just want to see what the scale would be like if we take retro Spider-Man. Yep, I think that that's about correct, actually. Of course, once we add the seats in there and things, it'll be a little more obvious. But yeah, I think it's pretty well a 6-inch scale, a 1/12 scale for these vehicles. Definitely, if you're used to doing just minifig scale stuff, this will seem like a giant set. But that's part of the fun of it, is getting to do something with a little more detail, a little bit bigger. Honestly, the last time that they did anything that was for the DeLorean in a minifig scale, it didn't turn out well. That was the Lego Creations. That was one of the first projects they greenlit, I guess, and it just didn't. I don't know. It just didn't pan out. It didn't look very good. And I realized that was years ago, so Lego's come a long way since then. But I'll be honest, it was to the point to where I sort of wondered if they even had the rights to the actual DeLorean itself, or if they just had to make like an approximation. But I also know it was a Lego Ideas thing, so not trying to be critical at all to the original designer of the project. Lord knows they designed something I never could have, but I just never thought that that minifig scale DeLorean turned out very good. It always looked so rough, in my opinion. Especially the canopy. Oh, if you go back and you look up pictures of it, that canopy is something else. There's all these weird building techniques to make it look right, and it just ends up blowing all the detail. It just looks horrible. Just looks horrible. All right. So this looks like some interior detailing that we're going to be doing. Get these lined out. And it's sort of hard from this angle to see. So I'm going to go up a little bit so that you guys can see what we're doing a little bit easier. And just kind of turn this way. Yeah. And this may have something to do with the seats, getting the seats mounted in the right way. I'm not 100% sure. But that's part of the fun of a set like this, is you're kind of just discovering what you're doing as you're going. I would much rather just not know and just be kind of whimsically just building as I go, just following the instructions piece by piece. It's kind of a meditative sort of Zen thing. Find a lot of peace building something like this. Teach you some patience too, some stress management. Just let the world go by and build your set. There it is. Okay, got that arranged. All right. Next up, we're going to be building some of the gear shifts and stuff. So we're definitely doing the interior parts of the build here. Kind of those fun little details that you take for granted. That means tiny little black pieces like this that's going to hold the gear shift in place. Yeah. The funny thing is, of course, that the minifigs are kind of here for, I guess you're getting them as a souvenir. And so, the actual thing doesn't scale with the minifigs, which makes me wish they would have included a minifig version as a gift with purchase. That would have been great, because Lord knows after that Lego Ideas one, it's not, that one isn't too great. So we desperately need an update. This is funny. You put a microphone on here for the top of the gear shift. So, I mean, that works. Whatever works, right? All right, the gear shift goes right there so that that baby can hit 88 miles per hour. Well, the first part of this stand was, I think I was building for about 4 hours, but that was me, kind of goofing off and talking to people. So I wasn't very focused. Um, I think if you were really focused, this could take you, 4 or 5 hours, and you could probably get it done in that amount of time if you were doing one setting. Maybe 6 hours or something. Just depends on how fast you wanted to go. For me, this whole thing is probably with me just being talkative and kind of conversational as I build it, and just going slow and taking my time. It'll probably end up being an 8 hour kind of deal or 7 hour ordeal with my total run time on this live stream. But I don't know. I used to feel a lot more rushed, I guess, about the whole process. Then I found that I enjoyed it a lot more. Yeah, and that was the same deal there, where the minifigs don't really like go in the car. With that one though, they actually did a gift with purchase for the first people that bought the Batmobile or the first batch of it, where you actually got a minifig scaled Batmobile, which I loved. I thought that was great. I'd say a lot of people didn't love it so much who didn't buy it, at first. So saw it listed at 9 hours. Just got mine today. Building tomorrow. At least two. Oh yeah, yeah. Um, I'm curious, and when we get there, I'm really going to be curious about just how much effort it's going to take to transform it into the other versions, because I'm going to be super happy if it's kind of low effort to transform it into the other versions, because that means that I won't have as much remorse about not getting multiples, and then I can easily be like, okay, well, I'm going to tinker with it this time and make it Back to the Future 3, or I'm going to make it the original Back to the Future. At least that's what I'm hoping, but who knows, right? Because I'm just like you. I thought to myself, oh, wouldn't it be great to buy 2 or 3 of these? Of course, I don't really have the resources to pull that off, but it's a fun, fun thought. It is definitely a fun thought. So, which one is the best Back to the Future movie, guys? I'm curious. I wonder what your thoughts are on this, because it's a little different. Oh, good, good, because I'm hoping for a simple swap, and it's all contained in the last bag, bag 11. Apparently has all the custom parts you need to do the swaps. So I'm thinking if it's just limited to one bag with those pieces, then I don't think we're in for anything too complicated. Just a few part swaps and some switches, but I'm thinking that that's going to be what I dedicate my last part of this live build to, is tinkering with all of that. And I do have a feeling that that'll take a little bit of time to look at the different options and disassemble. By far my favorite. Oh yeah. Who can blame you? Original Back to the Future is pretty much just movie perfection, right? I think that you could easily study that movie in a class or something for just filmmaking 101. I think everything you need to know about making movies is probably contained in some form or another in the original Back to the Future. It's just that simple. It's got it all, man. It's a movie that kind of defies genre, too. Like, it's, yeah, it's sort of science fiction. Yeah, it's sort of an action movie. It's even sort of a romance, type of deal. It's kind of a little bit of everything. It really is. And then when you factor in the sequels into that equation, then you can add Western as well. So Back to the Future 3 really defies convention. And that's probably one of the reasons why I like Back to the Future 3, is because it's an atypical kind of movie. It doesn't really fit into genre very well. There's all sorts of stuff going on. Now, did any of you guys get the Lego Ideas version of this, like way years ago, way back in the day? Because it's definitely aged. Like, it's not what I would call a modern Lego set. It was the time. Oh, I know. Listen, I was saying the exact same thing about the Time Machine train just the other day. And here's the thing. like I know that at least I don't think that there would be any sort of reasonable way for them to give us the time machine train that Doc builds in this scale. Like I know that that probably just can't happen. I'm not sure I'd want it to happen because we'd be paying such an insane price. But in minifig scale, I actually think it's pretty doable. It seems like something Lego would want to get their hands on, you know, and actually make happen. So I'm hoping. I'm hoping. And honestly, the best way that that could happen is for this to be a success, and I hope it is. And everybody says that it's the stupidest name they ever heard. Oh man. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. And the great thing about the Westerns stuff and Back to the Future 3 is a bunch of those guys that are in the bars and the saloons and all that are actual old, like, standby Western actors that you would see in a bunch of Westerns in the 50s and the 60s. They just hired those guys. So it's kind of like the ultimate tribute to old school Westerns. So I love it. To me, Doc is my favorite part of Back to the Future 3 because they give him all the juicy, dramatic stuff, right? Where Doc figures out that he thought his whole life was one thing and it means something else entirely. Is Marty picking up a frisbee? And throwing it. That's great, actually. Yeah, I had forgotten about that completely. That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. Did you guys ever see the? Oh, I'm trying to remember if it was on Jimmy Kimmel or what it was on. I think it was on Kimmel, where Christopher Lloyd in 2015 and Michael J. Fox actually popped out of the DeLorean and acted like they were Doc and Marty and that they'd come to 2015 and they were all confused and it was all different. And they were flabbergasted. That was very heartwarming for me to see. And Michael J. Fox, you know, he did really good with it, despite his health. And I was very heartened to see that. And I know that now he's struggling a little bit more, but God bless him. And, you know, God bless him and his family. He's a strong person. You'd have to be to go through this. Michael J. Fox it's such a shame because, I mean, could you just imagine what all he would have gotten to have been in and continued to have done and still stayed vibrant and, you know, still got to do so much. I mean, he still does some things. He was hilarious on Curb Your Enthusiasm. If you guys haven't seen his episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, it's very funny. And, but I still can't help but feel a whole lot of tragedy, a whole lot of sadness about that whole deal. Ah, we have a light brick right here. Let's see. We'll pull this. There we go. Uh-huh. There we go. Yeah, they were. I think that you're right. I think they were very. I think they were very disappointed. They were wondering where the flying cars were and where everything was. They weren't the only ones disappointed with 2015. It didn't pan out for any of us. That's okay though. At least they didn't go to 2020. Doc and Marty both instantly killed. It's not very funny, but I mean, sometimes the best way to deal with the tragedy is to laugh at yourself a little bit, laugh at the circumstance, I guess. All right. This light break is going to be just a blast. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to be activated just yet. I know there's going to be some kind of switch or something around here that does it, but I can't wait. All right. You know, I was watching a video the other day about Back to the Future 2, and they pointed out something And it's something I'd completely forgotten because it's been a couple years since I've watched the movies. And I can't believe I forgot it. And it was that in Back to the Future 2, they're watching a documentary. And on the screen, they talk about what's Mad Dog Biff Tannen or whatever, Mad Dog Tannen, Biff's ancestor. It's like a documentary about how he was one of the worst outlaws in the West, which is just a brilliant setup for Back to the Future 3 and made possible by them filming it back to back like they did. So, I mean, that's just great. Yeah, that would have been great if only, right? That would have been awesome. People would have been looking for that sports almanac, right? Making sure that they could place a few choice bets, and get their life back on track too. You know, it's funny. I think, at least I believe, Robert Zemeckis was probably the first director to try the whole thing with filming the movies. You know, filming the sequels back to back, which is pretty common. You know, yeah, that is an insane. That is an absolutely insane prediction. Oh yeah, Lord, yeah. I'm very excited for the new Obi-Wan series. I think it's something that everybody has wanted for the longest time. Even people who hated the prequels. I remember that practically anyone could agree that Ewan McGregor was this really bright spot. I didn't feel the prequel hate because I was a kid and I was enjoying them for everything they were. I wasn't a kid by the time Episode 3 came out, but I think everybody, even the staunchest critics, were all wondering how to see Ewan as Obi-Wan a little bit more. And he should really, I think, take heart with that because he really did make a big impression. And I know Alec Guinness would have been very proud to have seen what he would have done with it. And then there's a whole lot of buzz for the Ahsoka series as well coming down the pipeline. And I'm very excited to see in what direction that goes in. Now, there's a few that I think it could go in, and I'm excited. It's great to see Star Wars be healthy and vibrant, even if it's not in the traditional way that you would think that it was in feature film land or whatever. But the opportunity for streaming is just a whole new level of vitality for your brand. You can have like these giant Star Wars movies spread out over a season. And, if you didn't like that season or whatever, well, shoot, just wait for the next season. It'll be all right. Maybe you'll like it more. It doesn't feel like the end of the world to me if you don't necessarily like something they did with one of these shows. Whereas with the movies, it kind of feels done. If you go and you see one and you think it was horrible, you kind of feel like that it's just locked in and you're just miserable. But to me, there's a lot more room for experimentation for what works and what doesn't work with streaming. Are you guys watching Moon Knight at all? And if so, what are you thinking? I'm really enjoying myself watching Moon Knight. I don't know much about the comics with Moon Knight, unlike practically all the other properties on Disney Plus so far. Moon Knight is the one where I can't at all because it sounds like they made a few changes to some things and changes to the source material, and chances are I'll probably enjoy it more knowing less about that and just seeing what they did and just kind of taking it in. I mean, probably. But I'm having a really good time. And a particularly Oscar Isaac as Moon Knight and all of his many personalities is just awfully impressive. And I think everybody already knows Oscar Isaac is a really good actor. He's been miscast a few times, but if you've ever watched Deus Machina, no, Ex Machina, yes, I almost had it, Ex Machina, the movie about artificial intelligence, then he is superlative in that. And so I think that anybody who's seen that can attest to how wonderful he really is because he is fantastic. Oh, just turn the page and I see Yeah, I see that we got a sticker application coming up because it's almost time to build the flux capacitor, I do believe. So go. We have a little base stand. We have the window box for the capacitor right here. Great. We have the glass, painted glass. Yeah, the British accent. Yeah, and what's funny is, you know, it depends on what personality. And it works well to do the different versions of himself, because you know you can have, it helps to distinguish one from the other, I guess. He handles it well. He handles it very well. Here's the sticker for the flux capacitor. This is great. All right, let's see if I can get this thing on there. Okay. I was afraid I'm going to mess these up. I'm going to do this off camera just to make sure that I get it the way I want it here. Last thing you want to do is inappropriately place something like this, and then you're stuck with it, and then it's a whole thing. I've had to get replacement stickers before when something like that has gone just completely wrong. But you always hope it's not going to happen. All right, I did a good job. That looks good. That looks good. I'm gonna give myself 5 stars, 5 out of 5. It's real sticker placement right there. Doc Brown, he would be so proud of my sticker placement on the flux capacitor. All right. Well, that was less painful than I thought it would be. I'm happy. Time to move on. Have you guys seen Morbius? Did you watch Morbius? What are your thoughts? Yes, I saw The Batman, and I was just blown away. I was just really taken by it. It was exactly what I wanted it to be. Yeah. It was actually beyond where I thought they would go. To me, they really pulled a trick with The Batman. That was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I was heartily impressed. That being said, it may not be for everybody, you know. But for me, it was exactly the kind of take I'd been waiting for. And probably, for my money, I think it's the closest that we've seen to pure Batman on film. I think that it's the one that I think nailed the mood in such a way that just, I don't know, it just floored me. The opening beats of the movie set up the whole vibe so perfectly. And Matt Reeves is an unbelievable artist. Watch those Ape movies and you'll, you know, it becomes obvious right away that this guy he's on a whole nother level. He's on a whole other level. God bless Matt Reeves. That was fantastic. Yeah, the detective work is wonderful in the movie. I also think that I remember going into it, I thought, okay, the one way that this could really slip up is what if Batman, what if this is all just too brutal? It's just too dour to the point to where there's just nothing. There's not even a sliver of hope. There's no light in the movie. And the end of the movie was it definitely solves that problem. It's the movie because it's about hope, you know. It's about it's about Batman being a force of good and positivity in a way that I don't even think other film versions have even attempted to broach, to attempt that topic. I don't think that we've ever seen it. I think that the other movies were a little more concerned with Batman being Mr. Sacrifice or Mr. Darkness, but never so much about Batman reaching out to people who really needed him and being a symbol of hope for the city. It's really beautiful sentiment, and I think came from a deep place in Matt Reeves' heart. There's a lot of love for Batman, very apparent in every word of the script, every shot of the movie. But I'll tell you, I'd actually been sold on the Batman for quite some time. And usually these kinds of press events don't really sell me on this stuff. But it was that first DC Fandom event they did where Matt Reeves was on the funny green screen or whatever. And he was talking about the movie. And the longer I heard the guy talk, the more I realized that he sounded like just like me. Like if I was talking about Batman, he was nailing all the different things about it. And the more he talked, the more I could just tell, wow, this guy loves Batman, like truly loves Batman. And I thought, man, this is in good hands. It always gets on my nerves from the I hate Batman. I mean, come on, he's Batman. Yeah. I mean, all I know is that if I lived in Gotham, Lord, I wouldn't hate Batman. I would he would be like the man of the hour, in my opinion. Everybody, and you're right. There's been so many different movies where it's like there's this obsession with this. Oh, the people of Gotham, they don't appreciate Batman or they hate Batman or whatever. No, he's. If you ask me, anybody willing to provide that kind of public service, it's so effective, is so. He's kind of like the ultimate hero, and Batman proves himself in the movie. It's not about Batman becoming a sacrificial lamb or becoming a pariah, which, as much as I love The Dark Knight, a lot of the ending of the movie is about Batman being a pariah, an intentional pariah, so that he can help the citizens of Gotham, being sacrificial. And that's great. But then seeing in Dark Knight Rises that what they decided to do with that was to have him quit. You see, and I actually like The Dark Knight Rises quite a bit, but I remember I was so disappointed when that's the revelation at the beginning of the movie, because that wasn't what I got from the ending of The Dark Knight. What I got was that Batman would keep going and keep fighting, and there was going to be all these adventures that you didn't see, but Batman had kind of sealed his fate as never being able to be able to stand in the light of day to the citizens of Gotham. Well, that isn't what happened. Batman decided that he was just going to quit after The Dark Knight and quit for years while the city just what? It magically got better or something? I don't know. It didn't seem very Batman to me necessarily, but other parts of that movie are fantastic and very underrated, and there's a lot of beauty in The Dark Knight Rises. There was just that one decision that kind of had me a little iffy on the whole enterprise, but hey, it's still great. And I was actually a huge fan of Batfleck. I actually thought he was great. I didn't think the theatrical cut of Batman versus Superman was very good at all, because I mean, geez, it was not a good movie. But the actual intended cut that Zack Snyder did, and the ultimate cut or whatever, that was very good. Thought that was a very, very solid Batman film. Yeah, I know. I think everybody was just kind of like, gee, he's just getting started. And I remember having to tell myself all kinds of stuff to justify that. I remember saying, oh, well, this is the more realistic take, and oh, if Batman was real, he would have to quit or he would get killed or something like that. But after a while, I began to ask myself, do I really want Batman to be like this realistic? Do I need him to be like a real person? Because those Nolan movies, yeah, sure, things about them are realistic, but they're not very realistic. there's there's things that, just would never, ever, ever happen that are in those movies. So, see, that's why I like the Batman's world so much, is because, yeah, it feels real, but everything is hyper real. Like, yeah, there's a reality to it. Everything feels grounded, but at the same time, it feels more like the Blade Runner reality, or more like that kind of reality where there's a style to it and it's more of a comic book. Like, I don't look at the Batman and see them striving for some kind of super realism. I don't see that. And if that was their intention, it went right over my head. I didn't see a super realism strive for it. It was more like honestly, it was more of a mood piece, really. And that's what I think a Batman movie ought to be. It should be all about that mood. You're trying to capture that weird, dark mood. And to me, this was the first movie since I guess Mask of the Phantasm that really captured that bizarre, kind of strange. Being Batman can sometimes feel like a curse mood. But it's funny because this was like the Mask of the Phantasm with a happier resolution. Because at the end of Mask of the Phantasm, there's this feeling that the resolution is Batman accepts the curse of being Batman, but he gets nothing from it. But here, Batman accepts the curse of being Batman, but also acknowledges that it's this way to bring beauty and light to such a bad place, and to help these people that don't deserve all of this, horrid, this nightmare. And that to me it was very uplifting at the end of the movie. It'll take you on an emotional kind of journey. And to have a Batman movie that takes you on that kind of journey, that's fulfilling. And I'll always be indebted to Matt Reeves, if that is the only Batman movie he ever makes. And I do not believe it will be. But let's just say that was the only one. I'll always go back to that and say, wow, they cracked it right there. If anybody needs to know how to do it, that's how you do it. Just a beautiful experience. You did it, Matt. You did it. Sometimes I wonder if having possibly all that extra time in post-production, because the movie was delayed so much with the pandemic and all that, maybe that helped the Batman. Maybe that was something that kind of afforded the filmmakers more time to get the perfection and to get the effects right and get the post-production stuff right and figure out what they needed for reshoots and just all of that. And if that's the case, that's great. I mean, it's obviously not worth the toll in other ways, but it's at least you could make something positive from the whole thing and be able to refine your craft and have more time to get it just right. And I think that's lovely, if that is indeed what happened. All right, we got another sticker here. Looks like this is some kind of dashboard application, maybe some of the gauges. Perhaps it's the Plutonium chamber sticker that measures all of those readouts. So we'll get that on there. A little less challenging sticker here. This one is just on one of those rectangular flats, so it's a little less caution needed, I suppose. There we go. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It's funny how much this bag ended up being about those little details, those little internal details for the build. This bag ended up being about all that stuff. Oh yeah, I was just mesmerized by the whole thing. Here on the channel, I don't do a whole lot of movie stuff, like straight up reviews or anything like that, because there's so many channels that do that, and I don't want to just be another one of those guys. But I loved it. I thought it was great. I think it was my brother that ended up making the statement that how incredible is it that in just such a short space of time that we got what I believe may very well be the best Batman movie and what may very well be the best Spider-Man movie in such short order. And it seems preposterous that they would be able to crack this that close together, but they did. At the same time, I wonder if we'll see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire again as Spider-Man on down the line. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I hope we do. I think that that would be great to see them again. It's not something they need to overuse. That would be a horrible idea to kind of just pull that rabbit out of the hat constantly now. But clearly, if they know what audiences want, then they know that audiences want as much Spider-Man content as you can give them with those legacy actors. And I will admit that I know that probably I was the only person that got fooled, but when Ned was using the Doctor Strange ring to say, you know, show me Peter Parker, show me Spider-Man or whatever, that I was totally fooled when you saw Spider-Man from a distance. And I thought he had just found Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And as he got closer, I was totally shocked when it turned out to be Andrew Garfield. And, you know, I'm probably the only person that fooled, but that was what a great, I mean, clearly everybody knew they were going to be in the movie somehow or another. And they weren't fooling me on that one. I said from day one that, yeah, there's no way they're stupid enough to not put them in the movie. But talk about a tremendous entrance. And then the way Tobey Maguire's entrance was handled was just fantastic. I just feel like it was very lovingly written, clearly by people who truly understood what each of those versions of Spider-Man was like. And it was the kind of thing that I think everybody in the theater was just hanging on every word that each of the Spider-Men were saying, because they were giving us hints about where their story had gone since the movies that we'd seen. And I'm one of the people that were, I was heartbroken when I found out there would not be a Spider-Man 4. I was devastated. I couldn't believe it that I had had all this investment in this version of the character and they were just going to reboot it. It devastated me because Spider-Man 3 had ended on such a low note. And I don't just mean like, I actually like Spider-Man 3 pretty well. But what I mean is the character, you know, Mary Jane and Peter are kind of on this unresolved note, and everything is going really poorly. And that seemed like such a bad place to hit the brakes and say, well, you know, that version's done. We tried. Sorry, guys, and better luck next time. Like, why not strive to give that version of the character a happier ending? And I felt that he deserved it. And poor Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, he's comic book Spider-Man through and through with his rotten luck. And I guess that's the Parker luck again, where he couldn't get a happy ending. But it gave me a lot of joy in this movie, in No Way Home, when they threw in that little line where he's like, yeah, you know, we're working on it. You know, we're good now. We made it work. That made me happy to hear that. I thought, okay, I can finally have a little bit of peace in my mind for these imaginary characters that I wondered if they would ever be okay, or if they were ever going to make it. And it seems silly, but to me, Mary Jane and Peter and those Sam Raimi films felt like very real people to me, and I felt like a lot of the younger people who watched the movies, they saw them as very real. So that was tremendous for me to hear some sort of resolution to their story. It meant a lot to me. I'll always be indebted to the creative team for making all of that happen. I don't know if you guys read this, but Sam Raimi, recently they asked him while he was doing press for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, they asked him about the possibility of coming back to do Spider-Man 4, and he absolutely would not rule it out. You could tell he was leaving it open, and he actually responded way less vaguely than I even thought he would, and it's exciting. It's exciting. You've got I really do think that it sounds like it could happen. I'm not sure if it's going to happen tomorrow or anything, but I don't think it's out of the question. I absolutely don't think it's out of the question. Like I said, I don't think it's going to happen right away, but I mean, there's one thing about it. If there is money to be made, and boy, oh boy, is there money to be made, then there's no reason why that wouldn't be a possibility. It's something that everyone would benefit from. Everybody. There comes a time when you just have to acknowledge that there's no reason not to do something. You may as well. So just do it. That would be my advice. Just make it happen. It's all right. Figure it out. Everybody wants a payday, right? Fans, they want to see what happens. Come up with a story. It'll be all right. Let Sam Raimi do what he wants to do. Don't get in his way. All right, we have our steering wheel there. All right, we've got our console lined up. Oh, yeah, I got to angle that up a little bit, or else you're not going to get anybody's feet through there. Well, here's the real question about Spider-Man 4. What do we do with the villain? What's the villain for the movie? Like, what's that? What would that be? Would it be just like Sam Raimi originally intended, and it would be the Vulture, or was that already kind of played out with the Marvel Studios version of the movie? No Way Home. Sorry, not No Way Home. Gosh, Homecoming. Too many home titles. Or do you do something different? My personal pick is do the Lizard and have Dylan Baker come back as Kirk Connors. That's my personal pick. I know he's older and all of that now, but hey, we have digital de-aging, we got makeup, we got whatever. You can make it work. It's not impossible. Baker was excellent as Kirk Connors, and I always felt like that you could definitely lead to the Lizard movie so easily because he had established such a great base for that character. Or do you incorporate Mysterio and have Bruce Campbell play Mysterio like that was the original, funny intention for that little segment in the movie? I don't know what you do. But whatever you do, I mean, I think people would love it. Maybe do something entirely different. Don't do anything that was a part of their original plans. Do something that breaks convention in every possible way. There you go. Just keep loading up the villains. It's funny we ended up with kind of the Sinister Five in No Way Home. Which I know there was one version of the movie they claim where Mysterio was going to come back, or it was going to be revealed he wasn't dead, or maybe he would even come back through time or something. That's the funny thing about Jake Gyllenhaal Mysterio, is I'm convinced that he didn't actually die at the end of Far From Home. I mean, he's Mysterio. He would have faked his death. So I'm not sure why that was a decision that was made, that they were going to hold on to that as real tight continuity, that he definitely perished at the end of Far From Home, because I just don't think that's a thing. I think the whole intention of that is he's going to try to ruin Spider-Man and then fake his own death, because which villain is the most capable of faking their own death? Well, gee, I don't know, Mysterio. So, but maybe they play that card later on. I don't know. I think they have set themselves up for great success with Spider-Man 4, whatever that ends up being for. Well, when I say Spider-Man 4, I mean they've set themselves up for great success with Marvel Studios Spider-Man 4, like Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4. I mean, the suit that they came up with is gorgeous. It's probably the best live-action Spider-Man suit since the original Raimi suit. It's gorgeous. It's just a beautiful work of art. So you've got that going in their favor. You have a wonderful, less complicated comic book Spider-Man status quo now, where there's everything can kind of be more comic book accurate, where he's on his own and he's broke and all of this. Yeah, yeah, and that was originally an idea. Apparently, they were kicking around that Mysterio would still be around, and that would have been a fantastic fight to have had in a movie. I think Doctor Strange and Mysterio just kind of lend themselves to one another in a way, at least visually. There's a representation there of their abilities would I think be really a spectacular thing to have seen. But apparently, that was one of the things that the work on the movie was struggling with. The people who were working on it was just getting done with a level of effects and the amount of effects that they needed before the movie came out. So I that could have honestly been one of the reasons that they decided to cut it at the end, was because there was no way to be able to get done with that amount of work. I've seen people ripping up some of the effects in No Way Home, and I mean, look, some of them aren't perfect, but most of them look great. I don't know if this is just effects snobbery talking. I don't know what they necessarily wanted from the movie, but I thought it was very, very good looking. They even went back and improved some of the effects. But people have to understand it's a miracle that the movie even got done with the pandemic. And I actually fully expected it to get delayed again, but it didn't. They actually managed to hit that release date. And I bet they're glad that they did after seeing the box office returns on the thing, because of course, it was massive. So right now, the stickers that we're putting on here are all of the different time destinations from of course, the different versions of the time destinations from the first movie. Fantastic. Love seeing this great attention to detail with the set, getting the dates just right to get them to line up. And it's a really nice looking display when you have it all kind of lined out right there. So, really like that. I'm glad that there's pretty well a minimal amount of stickers in the set. It would have been horrible if there was a ton, but I'm glad that they keep it pretty minimal. It's not. Oh yeah, the Charlie Cox cameo, man, was fantastic. I saw something about where Charlie Cox said that he was so disappointed that at the screening that I think he and his wife went to, that nobody even really cared when he showed up. Man, he should have come to my screening. people lost it when Daredevil, when Matt Murdock's shown up. I mean, I lost it. I'm actually a bigger Daredevil fan than I am a Spider-Man fan, even. So for me, it was and I'm probably like one of the only people around that can say that. Daredevil's been my thing since I was a teenager. But I thought it was great. And I think very quickly they were able to establish Matt Murdock, this version of Matt Murdock, which I don't necessarily think will be the same exact version of the character we saw in those Netflix shows. I think they very quickly established him as maybe a little, I don't know, a little more Silver Age-y kind of Daredevil. A little more, I don't know, a little less angsty maybe. And that's fine. I think you can play Daredevil either way, and I think it works either way. But the important thing is Charlie Cox was retained. And if they hadn't done that, that would have been a horrible, horrible mistake. Why would you even need to cast someone else if you already have Charlie Cox, who everybody absolutely, absolutely love? Oh, yeah, there you go. Well, we're definitely on the same page there. Yeah, there's no reason to cast someone else. Charlie Cox is spectacular as Daredevil. And as we both agree, Daredevil is, to me, he's the best thing that Marvel has. So if I can say that Charlie is the right guy, then I really feel like he's the right guy. And keep him around, for goodness sake, keep him around. And it sounds like he has a long, long history ahead of him with Marvel Studios. And it just goes to show you can make such a big impression that you can break through continuity problems or whatever, and you can still retain your role if the fans demand it loudly enough. And D'Onofrio as Kingpin, man, he is so fantastic. Of course, he didn't get to have the depth of character in Hawkeye that, of course, we saw him have in the Netflix show, but that's to be expected. Oh yeah, you know, yeah, I totally agree with you because there's so many people right now. They keep speculating about okay, what's Marvel Studios going to do with Daredevil, and I always hear the same thing about oh, there's going to be a new show. I always think, now wait a minute, wait a minute. We got 3 seasons of a show. Maybe, just maybe, the way to make it different is to have it be a movie again. I think that there's enough demand for Daredevil and enough enthusiasm for the character. Why not try it in that format and just skip doing the show? People love Daredevil. I think it's worthy of being a movie, not just a TV show. Now, that being said, Marvel TV, Marvel Studios TV is on a whole nother level. You know, you look at the Marvel Studios shows and you compare them to something like the CW, the more modestly budgeted, you know, Canadian productions, and it's not even close. Of course, we know that. That's obvious to anybody who watches this stuff. But at the same time, I think that I think that we'd be missing out. I think they'd be missing a trick if they didn't look into just having Daredevil be a movie again. I mean, that has been 20 years since the Ben Affleck film, which did well. It did very well, as a matter of fact, for what it was, and it made money. So even then, Daredevil was a big draw, worked out very well, made good money. So why couldn't Daredevil be a success right now? Of course it could be. It's foolish to think otherwise, as a matter of fact. It's completely foolish. If Marvel likes money, they'll do a Daredevil movie. If they enjoy making a big profit, they'll do a Daredevil movie for sure. All right. So with this appears to hook in right there. There we go. Nice solid connection. We've got our windshield on now, which is a huge part of the visual identity of the vehicle. So it's definitely looking more like an actual car now. And of course, as we show with every bag, I want you to feast your eyes on the magnificent cornucopia of extra pieces that LEGO has gifted us with this fine day. Look at how they blessed us. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Get a whole, 5 teeny tiny little extra pieces right there. Enough to bolster your LEGO city. Yeah, excitement. Bag number 8. Let's make it happen. Oh, this looks like it's going to be fun. I see some hoses in here. Yes. The microphone gear shift, as it ended up being used in this set. There isn't a lot of pieces in bag number 8. Yeah, it's pretty... Well, there are a lot of pieces, but they're tiny little pieces. So there's going to be some building, but it's going to be more minutia. This is smaller stuff right here. I see some gray panels, so we're definitely going to be filling out more of the exterior of the car right here. And getting it a little closer to looking like that classic DeLorean we know and love. You know, in my first part of this live stream, I was kind of openly pondering about something. Is what is the actual delivery method for how LEGO could possibly get us some more Back to the Future minifigs? Because this is kind of a one and done, and I just hope it does well enough to, like I was saying earlier, do that minifig scaled time machine train. That would be a great way to get more minifigs out. But the good news is that there are a lot of cowboy kind of minifig pieces out there. So I guess if you really wanted to, you could definitely customize some cowboy versions of Doc and Marty. That'd be easy enough. But then if you're like me, I actually didn't get the Lego Dimensions sets or anything. So I kind of missed out on some of those minifigs. So that's a little unfortunate. So I guess I'm just concerned, how do I get a regular Doc and Marty from the first movie? And I'm not sure there's a really good answer for that. But there's one thing about it. Lego is usually quick. If something does well, they quickly develop a follow-up product. Or if it does well enough, say for instance the '89 Batmobile Ultimate Collector Series set, they, I think, much more quickly than people even thought they would, were very, very quickly developed the follow-up product with the Batwing. And so I think that there's a lot of looking at those initial sales numbers to see, okay, do we go ahead and put something else into production or what? So I actually think that maybe if there's something to be said for a time machine train or something, I think we'll know sooner rather than later. All I know is that Back to the Future is kind of a perennial thing. It keeps coming back, so I feel that this is going to do very well. I do, especially because it was waitlisted so soon after going up for order. So I don't think there's going to be a problem. But you never know. There's been some things that I thought were sure things that performed very poorly. So I'm hoping that's not the case. But Lego is a private company, so they don't ever have to reveal what their actual sales figures are. It's all internal. They're the ones poring over all their numbers and figuring it all out. And if something was a success, then they know about it and they act on it. So it's all in-house. Honestly, I hope Lego remains a private company. I think there's something to be said for maintaining control. And they're in a good place right now, so why give up any of that by going public? Well, not quite. Here we go. This is the one I needed. I think people have been a little disheartened that Lego has yet to reveal any kind of spoilery No Way Home Spider-Man sets. I mean, I think it's obvious which one that they should do, though, right? It's the revised Statue of Liberty from the end of the movie. That would be the big collector series set to do. Think Lego Movie 2, how they did the giant Statue of Liberty, like the halfway destroyed Statue of Liberty. That's kind of like what I want to see, honestly. Is something a little bit like that. There's already sort of a template, right, for them doing that. Oh, wow. Well, for me, the easy answer is always to say something like Two-Face, because he's easy to adapt and all that. But I feel like Two-Face was already done, to such an extent in Dark Knight that I'm not sure that that's necessarily right. I would really have to agree with two different directions that I've heard. One direction is going with the Mr. Freeze thing. I actually think that would be really great because I think Matt Reeves could do. He even commented and said that yeah, he could probably find some kind of way to make that work, even in that more realistic world. And I think that would really be an impactful story. Like that would be an emotional story and a really effective one. At the same time, I could see easily, and there was already some, hints laid down in this first movie. I could easily see Hush being the direction that they go in, but you would have to drop all of the Robin aspect of that story, or maybe bring Robin in simultaneously with it. I don't know how that works. So there's that. I don't know. The Court of Owls would be great too, because I'm trying to think of things that are a little more fresh or that we haven't seen or that we haven't seen in a while. But at the same time, you know what the crazy part is? Is let's say Schwarzenegger was given like a really emotional script and like worthwhile a really worthwhile take on the character. I think he could have been a great Mr. Freeze. Like he really could have been. But now he's just a funny Mr. Freeze. And I don't hate that happened either, because honestly, my life would be a lot less happy without Schwarzenegger Mr. Freeze. Like he's genuinely, that whole movie, for the disaster that it is, genuinely brought a lot of joy into my life when I was a little kid. I was only 9 years old when the movie came out. And so that, I was the perfect age. If there was a time I could have possibly appreciated Batman and Robin, it was 1997, summer of 97. That was my window, and it just so happened I was 9 years old. So God bless him for making something so ridiculously childish. I thought it was fun and enjoyed myself. Sure enough, though, as soon as just a couple of years later, I could see the cracks in the armor. It was like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I think Batman Forever was quite a bit better than this. Oh boy, oh man, what a misstep. But hey, rest in peace, Joel Schumacher. You certainly had a creative vision, and Batman Forever, I will defend Batman Forever on and on. That was a very, very good Batman movie. Batman Forever was, even if Batman and Robin was not. God bless you, Joel. Rest in peace. Rest in peace. He gave as a kid. I'd certainly had a great time. Great time. And people forget that Batman Forever was such a massive success. Batman Forever was a huge movie in 1995. Batman and Robin, on the other hand, yeah, made some money, but it was fleeting. The success of Batman and Robin was incredibly fleeting. Now, here's a question for you. Yep. And for me, that's all I've got is the nostalgia of the movie, going to Taco Bell and getting the Batman and Robin Happy Meal tie-in toys. I wasn't called a Happy Meal at Taco Bell. I don't know. I think they called it a kids pack or something. Going to Toys R Us and seeing the Batman and Robin action figures. That was another big thing for me. Seeing the first images of Batman and Robin on cereal boxes. Yeah. First way that I saw images of the movie was on cereal boxes. I can't even remember what cereal it was, but for some reason they put like coloring sets or something in the cereal boxes and character portraits on there. Seeing I think the first trailer for Batman and Robin I saw, this is really going to date me right here. Warner Brothers Studio Store in the Westtown Mall of Knoxville, Tennessee. Yeah, the Warner Brothers Studio Store. I don't know I don't know. There's probably not many people that even went into a Warner Brothers Studio Store. That was a short-lived concept. But they had this projection playing of different promotions for upcoming Warner Brothers movies, and this was end of '96 or something. And there it was, projected up there, and I was absolutely thrilled. And this is gonna sound hilarious. You got to understand, I was like 8 years old when I was seeing this trailer. But I was actually fairly frightened by Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Freeze, upon his first reveal, because the original teaser trailer, or the sizzle reel that they were showing, I'd be curious to know exactly what it was that they were showing at the Warner Brothers studio store now in retrospect. But they actually, they made him seem very threatening in that, even though, of course, we know now that he was not. The way that they cut it together, the lines that they used, they showed him like freezing the security guard, and it seemed like he was just killing him in cold blood. This made him seem like a legitimate threat, and the makeup and everything, looked threatening and all of that. And I feel like less of an idiot looking back at that now, because I know that apparently some of the behind the scenes info was that the executives at Warner Brothers thought it just looked incredible. That every time they got dailies from Batman and Robin, they were just beside themselves with how great it looked, and they were just instantly just floored by the movie. So knowing that as a kid, I thought it was really cool, and then seeing that, okay, there was a bunch of adults in 1996 when they were filming it that thought it was the coolest thing ever, I feel a little less bad about myself. But I was clearly the target audience, and I guess mission accomplished. Yeah, there's like there's different levels of horror. Oh boy, yeah, that was definitely another level of horror. That's for sure. I saw in the Double Toasted. I don't know if you ever watched Corey and those guys on Double Toasted. They were doing a Batman and Robin reaction video just a month ago or something, and they had me cracking up at all the stuff they were making fun of on Batman and Robin. And one of the things was the ice skates that come out of the shoes, and Corey kept shouting. He was like he would pause it, and he would act like he was Batman, and it would be like an "I told you so" to Robin. He was like, "I told you we'd need these. I told you eventually we would someday need these ice skates." And I was cracking up thinking, that's right. Batman had no clue leaving the Batcave that he was going up against like this ice-themed villain. And he had ice skates like installed into the bat boots and Robin's because, he's looking out for him. I mean, it's absurd. It's crazy. The Batman had these ice skates, like professional grade ice skates. Of course, upon closer inspection in the movie, you can clearly see the stunt people and everybody else are just rolling around on rollerblades, and they're trying to like dry ice the floor to where you won't notice it, but it's a shoddy effect. You can clearly see the rollerblades just on and on as you go. So yeah, that didn't work out. Mercy, I'm afraid the condition has left me cold. Do you please mercy? Oh my gosh. A few years ago, and who knows if Schwarzenegger is being honest, I guess he is, I don't know. But he said that he was going to pull out of being in Batman and Robin. Like he'd read it and he realized it wasn't very good or whatever. And so he was freaking out, and he was going to pull out of the deal. And he called Joel Schumacher, apparently, and this is how he tells it, to tell him that he was thinking about just not doing it or whatever. And he said that Joel Schumacher told him that Warner Brothers just wasn't going to do the movie unless he agreed to do it. And the whole movie depended on him staying with it. And Schwarzenegger said that he was like, I'm gonna ruin the movie and get everybody fired. So he just went ahead and did it. So I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's Schwarzenegger trying to cover himself on why he did the movie. But also, Schwarzenegger received a ridiculous payday. And at the time, Schwarzenegger could command those kinds of paydays, and there was no, he was worth every penny of it. And when you get top billing over Batman in the movie, that's I think the bad guy won. You know, Schwarzenegger's name is over top of Clooney's. The villain already won the war. He's he hoisted Batman by his own petard. Of course, I'll never really understand exactly why Val Kilmer didn't come back to play Batman again. That to me tanks some of the movie, and because George Clooney was actually, um, oh man, allow me to break the ice. You know, he keeps. If I demanded a payday, they would have brought me a candy bar. I have no clout, and I would have shut up and eat it. Thank you. Oh, but yeah, I think Val Kilmer not playing Batman in the movie hurts. I think some of the momentum. Not that it would have really saved the movie. Not that it really would have helped the movie. But I mean, it would have at least grounded the movie in something, right? Some kind of history, some kind of. There would have been a shared history between he and Chris O'Donnell that would have at least, primed it for something. There could have been at least a feeling of familiarity there. And the way it is, even as a kid, I was like, this is kind of strange. You could kind of tell it was a little weird that all of a sudden a new person was playing Batman. George Clooney has always said that he thought at the time that that was like a great career move and that it was going to open doors for him and get him these bigger things, and he just had to endure it or whatever. But, it didn't work out that way. Let that be a lesson, I guess, that there's a price to pay when you knowingly get involved in something like that, that you can see the script and it isn't kosher. There's something wrong and you just do it anyway. You're like, it'll work out. It's a kid's movie. It'll be okay. Those are famous last words of anybody's career. Oh, it's a kid's movie. It's all right. It's not supposed to be good. All movies are, you know, have the potential to be good or bad. So let that be a lesson for any aspiring acteur. All right. Let's see what we got here. We are now doing the hood, or not the hood, geez. It's getting late. The canopy for the car. Always exciting when you're getting to this. Give it a little more definition, a little more identity to what the car even is. And this will also really stabilize these sides up here of the canopy and keep them from flying off because they've seemed a little twitchy since I put them on. Yep. Okay, I put that in the wrong spot. Let me just there. There we go. Oops. Aha. There we go. Okay, we've got that on. Once again, I'll have to give credit to the Double Toasted podcast or whatever. Corey Coleman sang recently when he was listening to Schwarzenegger make all those noises in Batman and Robin, wondering if Schwarzenegger made those noises like at home if he got hurt, and like if he like stubbed his toe, would Schwarzenegger be like like if he slipped in the bathtub, would he be like oh man. Because and Schwarzenegger has done this, in like every Schwarzenegger movie at some point when he gets hurt, from Conan to Jingle All the Way or whatever. But like in Batman and Robin, and I never really noticed it too much before till Corey Coleman pointed it out. It's when Schwarzenegger as Victor Freeze in like the flashback video, when he falls into the vat of freezing chemicals or whatever, and he's going backwards, and he makes the noise. He's like, "Ah, ah, ah." Oh boy. I watched Schwarzenegger's video that he filmed for the people of Russia just recently. I'm sure that some of you all probably saw it too, because it was kind of viral for a few days, where he was telling them how bad a guy Putin was, which is the understatement of the year, and trying to make sure that they weren't brainwashed by all the by all the propaganda out there. And it was a really great video. I mean, whoever helped him put it together or whatever, it was really nice. It was genuinely very affecting too. Schwarzenegger talked about his dad, who, let's just put it mildly, fought on the wrong side during World War II. And talked about how broken his dad was and how much he hated the Russian people because of the result of the war. And it was just an intense story that he told about how he idolized, can't remember his name, whatever it was. That was the famous Russian bodybuilder, and how that was his hero when he was a kid. And it was an amazingly put together video. So I think Schwarzenegger, with what influence he has, still tries to do a lot of good in the world. And he still tries to be a force for good. And I still can't help but be completely endeared to him always. He's just a funny guy. There's only one, and he's truly, in my mind, he's still Mr. Movie Star, and I guess he always will be. Schwarzenegger is someone who I would absolutely love to meet. I think I would freak out if I got to meet him. That would be a huge highlight for me. All right. Man, that's a weird piece. What is this supposed to be on the DeLorean? Is there something I missed? Some detail from the movies? I'm not exactly sure what that was supposed to represent. What is that? I don't know. I'm just gonna. It's probably something I'll look up and I'll be like, oh, that was there that whole time, and it's just something I never noticed on the side of the car. I can't think of what that is. Sometimes Lego, the way that they make things a little abstract, sometimes it makes it a little hard to figure out exactly what it is that you've just built. Even something as familiar as the DeLorean time machine. You built a time machine out of Lego? Yes. I appreciate that Lego actually did a really nice stop motion promo video of the DeLorean, and then Doc and Marty going through time. That actually does show that Lego has some investment in making sure that this is a success and that this works well for everybody involved. It's a little bit more pomp and circumstance than they usually would. So I'm pretty I think that does represent a little bit more dedication than you would usually see for a release like this. So clearly Lego has confidence in it that this is going to be a success. So I'm happy about that. Okay. So here, this is the way that you're going to depress this lever here and do the light brick. Very nice. Not sending me to the cooler. In the PlayStation game, the Batman and Robin PlayStation game, it would play that particular soundbite quite a bit. That game was a mess. It was a mess. It was delayed for like a year because clearly they had no idea what they were doing. But there's some pretty amazing things in that game, like a fully roamable open world Gotham City in 3D and fully roamable, explorable Batcave and Wayne Manor and all this. Like clearly they worked really hard on it, but the game wasn't very fun to play. Um, my brother actually beat the thing. He had a strategy guide that he was using. And if you didn't have a strategy guide, you were just out of luck because you couldn't have possibly figured out the cryptic bull of this game. It was just a mess. It was an absolute mess, designed so poorly. But I have to still really hand it to them that they were doing things with open world and exploration that were way ahead of their time. There was like Grand Theft Auto 3 kind of stuff way before PlayStation 2. So I still, my hats go off to them for trying something really cool. And even though they didn't succeed, they just bit off more than they could chew. I think they just panicked by the end of it, and they didn't know how to integrate all these complex systems that they were trying to do. They wanted the game to be like a detective action simulator. Yeah, Batman and Robin for the PlayStation. Oh my gosh. My brother and I, we were so excited for this game, and all the magazines had hyped it up to the max, you know, that this was the big Batman game that was going to revolutionize Batman games and it would be the big breakthrough title. You know, I'm actually kind of perturbed when people always say that it was Batman Arkham Asylum that was the very first like good Batman game ever. That kind of perturbs me a little bit. And no, I'm not saying Batman and Robin was the first good Batman game because it was not very good. There's a lot of great ideas in it, but um, I actually think that that title, when it comes to the 3D space, goes to Batman Vengeance because that was actually a very, very solid action game, like a very solid action game with an excellent production. And I don't know if you ever played Batman Vengeance, but it was based on like the New Adventures Batman with kind of slight redesigns, animated series. And that is a terrific game. It came out for the PS2 and I think the GameCube maybe. I absolutely loved it. I played it and played it and played it, and it was great. And then after that, that wasn't even the only other good Batman game that came out before Arkham Asylum. The Batman Begins game was a very, very competently made stealth action game. And that game is totally underrated. If you've never played the Batman Begins stealth action game, it was like it was even, I think, done by some of the same people. It was like a Splinter Cell game, only starring Batman. And it was very, very well done to be a stealth action game. And the cool thing is that Batman Begins actually lends itself to being a stealth action game because that's kind of the point of a lot of the action in the movie is that, you know, Batman's sneaking up on people and that it's about him blending into his environment and things. So it actually seems you know, to work. Oh yeah, there's so many good PS1 games. I still have practically all of mine, and so many good ones, especially the original Metal Gear, revolutionary game. Changed everything. Any of the Tomb Raiders, especially Tomb Raider 2. That was the one. All right. And the RPGs on the PlayStation are second to none, but prepare to lose your whole life to playing them. All right, we gotta stick this right here. Well, I thought I had it. Oh yeah, all three of the Arkham games, and they're truly fantastic. I have a couple of little nitpicks about different things in the games. The story, to me, kind of there's some things I didn't care for about the story in Arkham Knight, the last one, and there's even a couple things I didn't care for about the story in Arkham City. But overall, they're an incredible experience. And gosh, they're dirt cheap. They're always dirt cheap on PlayStation Network to download. You can frequently get the first two games, the remasters of the first two games, for like $8 for both of them together in a pack. And you can pay the same price to get Arkham Knight. So, I could be totally wrong here in a few months when it comes out. I didn't mind the tank missions too much. Like, they didn't really bother me. But at the same time, I I think it was a mistake for them to say, okay, well, instead of Batman fighting hand to hand with this person, we're going to focus on this tank style of thing, for the boss fight. That's where I think they went wrong there, where they were focusing on those kinds of fights instead of like a natural, like regular boss fight. That's where I think that went wrong. I'll tell you what I did like was Batmobile puzzles, where you were using like the winch to like hook onto stuff and pull it down, and the Batmobile would have to pull something while you did something else. I liked all that, but I think, yeah, the tank stuff, they got a little carried away. Even though I didn't mind it too much, but it was, I kind of think that I could be totally wrong, and I might be wrong here in a few months when it comes out. I hope I'm wrong, but I really don't think that the solution for Rocksteady Games was to do a Suicide Squad game. I don't think, and they've been working all these years, and to not just move forward with more Batman, or better yet, maybe even a Superman game, to instead do the squad-based Suicide Squad game is awfully strange, in my opinion. I know I might be the only person that feels that way. The internet could just be full of people who just love the Suicide Squad game or love the way it looks. But to me, I don't really feel a tremendous amount of excitement from it. And I hate it because Rocksteady, this studio that brought us three of the best action games ever, has apparently spent all these years with, I mean, aside from all the projects they were working on that got canned or got changed or whatever, they spent all this time working on a Suicide Squad game. I love Suicide Squad, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like by that same token, I'm sort of just flabbergasted that that's what they're gonna do is a Suicide Squad game. I call me vanilla or whatever, but I was really just hoping for another Batman game or a Superman game, and I think that's what everybody was hoping for. And when it wasn't either one of those, it just I think it was really deflating for a lot of people. And the hype hasn't really built. At least I don't feel that it's very very much built up for the Suicide Squad game. I don't feel like the hype train has really engaged on this. I'm not exactly sure why the feeling was, oh, the Suicide Squad game, that's the direction. That's what people really want. Are you sure, Warner Brothers? Because I'm pretty sure people either wanted more Batman or a Superman game. At least that was, what the entire internet seemed to believe. Right, right. And that's why it feels like such a betrayal, because it feels like very much so that they're heavily, heavily hinting in Arkham Knight that, okay, well, the next thing we're doing is Superman. And then when they don't, it kind of just, it sort of feels like a real letdown. You can't possibly tell me, as an enthusiast of the comics or whatever, that when you found out that you wouldn't be getting a Superman game, that you would instead be playing Harley Quinn, like what, beating someone up with a baseball bat or something, that was that was thrilling to you when you found out. You're like, oh yeah, I didn't want to play Superman anyway. All those powers are stupid. Nobody felt that way. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that feels this way either, because I've talked to a bunch of other people that feels that way. Oh yeah, yeah. I think that would have been huge. How about this? A game where you play, some parts you play as Batman, other parts you're playing as Superman. Maybe even be able to cooperatively do it. I don't know. Something in concept went wrong. Some people say, and this was a rumor that was just around, some people say that Rocksteady did pitch this big Superman game, and that was indeed the plan, like right away. It's what we all thought they were gonna. They laid all these hints in, and they pitched the Superman game. And the rumor suggests that Warner Brothers thought it didn't look very good, and told them to go back to the drawing board and come up with something else. And in the meantime, WB Games that ended up doing this Gotham Knights game, which I'm not sure I'm any more excited about. They, on the other hand, pitched a Suicide Squad game that Warner Brothers didn't think looked very good and told them to go back to the drawing board. And somehow or another, Rocksteady ended up doing the Suicide Squad game. And I guess Warner Brothers thought that looked really cool. It's a weird thing that happened. I don't know how they all got switched out with all this different stuff and how it all, to me, I don't know. Well, yeah, me too. I've tried, and you're right. That's the operative word. And it is very, very difficult for me to get excited about Sidekick the game. I'm just going to be honest. I can't. It's like if someone had told me that in Arkham Knight, it's like, all the parts where you play as Batman, well, you're not going to do that, but let's just do all the parts where you play as Nightwing. Or let's just do all the parts where you played as Robin. Or how about just the Batgirl DLC? Like, to me, I'm sorry, Batman's always going to be the main draw. That's a vanilla opinion. I don't care. Sidekick the game. That might as well be what they marketed as. And look, WB Games, I'm sorry. Okay, we're not toddlers. Everybody knows Batman's not really dead in the game. And, chances are we'll even get to play as Batman in the game. Chances are. But if you think it's a great plan to market the game as Batman's dead, but guess what? You'll get to play as Robin. That's not very smart. And if you can play as Batman in the game, you probably need to let a brother know about that. because if you don't, people aren't going to buy this. Because people want to play Batman. They tend to like Batman. They seem to like him. Here we go. Extra pieces from bag number 8. Wow. Fantastic. Fantastic. Bag number 9. Yeah, people like that pointy-eared freak. Wake up, WB Games. Wake up. Once again, not a tremendous amount of pieces for bag number 9. It's not huge or anything. We have it's amazing how complete the DeLorean is starting to look. Really amazing how complete it's starting to look. So, not much more. All right. Yep, green carrot. Delicious. Green unicorn horn. That's what I'm talking about. That'll be the rock you build your Lego city on. Who needs bricks and pieces when you can bask in the glory of a green unicorn horn carrot? Not me, said I. Not me. Coming full circle, going back to what we were talking about with Batman and Robin. There's that line which by the way, Robin seems so annoying in Batman and Robin. Him and Batman bicker like an old married couple through the whole movie. And Robin's like, he's talking about, why can't that be the Robin signal and all that, and then he gets the Robin signal. Poison Ivy rigs up the Robin signal. To me, that is the Gotham Knights, the video game. that whole thing about getting the Robin signal. You kids like that? Well, why can't it be Robin and Bat? Why can't it be Robin and Batman, not Batman and Robin? Yeah. It's like, oh, this is a nightmare. Oh, Robin. Oh, Robin. Robin, don't say such things. All right. There was a rumor there for a little while that Rocksteady Games was going to do a Ninja Turtles game, that they weren't even going to do a DC property. And of course, that turned out to be false. But man, that would have been more exciting to me than doing the Sidekick game. And, all things considered, I may play this and it'll be like the greatest game ever. And I'll be standing there saying, I can't believe that it didn't strike me sooner that playing as Robin, Nightwing, Batgirl, and the Red Hood for an entire game, it turned out the greatest fun I've ever had in my life. And if that happens, that's okay. Oh yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that was not good. They're just like, you know what? That's okay. We're gonna use this to sell a toy, and just take that right off. Just lay that right over there. Yeah, just throw it down. As a matter of fact, don't get that thing back. Oh, we're done with that. We don't need it anymore. Thank you. I think this bag is just going to be mostly used to cover up like different parts, and then the doors, of course, is going to be a big part of this. And I don't mean the band, but the doors are definitely going to be a huge aspect to this whole thing. I'm curious how sturdy the doors are going to be when they. Whoa! I'm curious how sturdy the doors are going to be when they open on this. Like, are we going to get any kind of like automated motion as they do, or is there going to be any kind of, or do you just pull them open, or what? Um, with Lego, you never know. Anything's possible. Whoop! It's all falling apart. As I'm building this, I keep flashing back to every Family Guy joke about Back to the Future. Oh boy. Whoops. Oh, that's not good. Okay. Well, this is funny. It's light blue here. Yeah. Yeah, I don't see story as being a strong part of the game. I'm sure the gameplay will be fine. WB Games isn't in the business of making uh, just, awful games or anything like that. But just the concept of it is what kills me. And I think they're going to find that that affects the sales quite a bit. However, don't be surprised if they drop some kind of trailer pretty close to release where there's a practical confirmation that you're going to be playing Batman by the end of the game, because they're going to do some kind of market research or something, and somebody's going to tell them, hey, it turns out nobody's going to buy this unless Batman is like the frontliner. Don't be surprised if they change the cover art to put Batman on it, to make sure that there's no way that people can possibly think that, he's not going to be in the game. Wouldn't surprise me in the least if they do a Hail Mary kind of last minute turnaround on their marketing and like, oh yeah, we forgot to mention Batman. Turns out he's the star of the game. Because I think that there's going to be a kind of a freak out when people see that maybe, hey, maybe just maybe people wanted to play a Batman game. It's possible. Just saying, it's possible. All right. It's funny, but I think that this bag is just going to be these. I don't know if we've got doors going here or what, but I think that this bag is just these two pieces that are just mirrors of each other. I don't know if any of you all remember Kimco Games. Kimco Games was I think they were a Japanese developer, and they did some of the worst licensed games imaginable. And some of those games were the Batman Beyond Return of the Joker game. Joker's back, Batman's back. Also, Martha and Thomas Wayne, they're back. They're teaming up with Batman. Alfred died from the shock, and then he came back too. And everybody's back. It's great. It's a return, is what it is. It's just a return. It's a return to form. They slap a subtitle on Gotham Knights called Gotham Knights Return of Batman. No, better yet, it's called Gotham Knights The Search for Batman. And we'll all meet back here for Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. Still my favorite joke in Spaceballs. That's going to be it. The game ends with Batman coming back. You don't get to play him or anything. And then it's like just a tease. It's a promise that in the sequel, hey, we may even let you play Batman next time. Just want y'all to know that, the next $70 game you buy, $60 game, whatever they're going to price it out to. Yep, we may even let you play Batman. We don't know. We're feeling generous. Hope you're ready to have some fun, kids. All right. I wonder if Michael J. Fox hadn't gotten Parkinson's. I wonder if there would have been a Back to the Future 4 or another trilogy of movies or something. I wonder if that's more of the unspoken understanding, is that they would never do that because it would just smack in the face of him getting sick. I have nothing to go on, by the way, to make me believe that. It's not something I'm like sure about or something. It's just something I've wondered about in the past. Is it something that Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale both were like, you know what? If Michael isn't healthy, we probably would never even consider doing something like that. And I don't even think I want Back to the Future 4. Well, that was a rumor for a little while. Kind of hope that's not true. That doesn't really seem like a good idea. It's like saying you're going to remake Citizen Kane or something, in my opinion. Of course, Back to the Future means a whole heck of a lot more than Citizen Kane does to me. So, I mean, I hate to be like that, but I think you'll find that's the opinion of a lot of Gen Xers. No disrespect to Orson Welles or anything, but it's just the way it is. Yeah, I know. Why not try something original? I mean, sometimes they turn out good. I'm not saying it's impossible. A good, I guess, a good case of this would be if you look at some of the classic remakes of things that actually turned out to be really brilliant in their own funny way. Like say for instance, you have like The Fly remake. That's in the 80s, the remake of the Vincent Price movie. That's a rare case where I'm not sure if it's better, but it's so different, and what Cronenberg did was so different that I walk away from it just being like, oh, I'm really glad this exists. This is really special that this even happened, versus just remaking something for no apparent reason. I think remakes work when you have such a different idea that that you're just compelled to try something that's just kind of a weird spin on something for like an artistic purpose. I think that's the only time they really work. Every now and then, there's just a different angle on the material, and that can work too. Say, for instance, you had like It. That worked because that was a TV, movie, miniseries kind of thing, 2-part television event that took a lot of liberties with the material. Well, yeah, the movie affords you the opportunity to 2 movies do something, to where you could do something a lot more accurate to the book, or, really change some things around. So that worked really well. But in most cases, there isn't a lot of reason to redo something like that. It's just kind of a, oh, well, let's see if we can squeeze a little more life out of this. Here's an unpopular opinion, or I think it's an unpopular opinion now. It wouldn't have been an unpopular opinion at the time, as I actually always thought the Star Trek reboot, the J.J. Abrams movie, I actually thought that was really good. It was really well done. And I like how it still managed to sort of be just a spin on like an alternate reality, of Star Trek, and it wasn't wiping out anything. And Star Trek Beyond was actually the best one out of those, and it didn't do very well. And that's a shame, because Star Trek Beyond, I think, was finally the most Star Trek-y out of those reboot movies. But they're still trying to get those made, they're still trying to get Star Trek reboot movies made. So I don't know what the deal is with that, and why they're just constantly, it seems like, striking out with those and trying to get them off the ground. I don't know what the problem is there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of times it just doesn't. I'm more of a Star Wars guy. Star Trek is something that I came to kind of later. I I like Star Trek though. I really do love Star Trek. It's very special to me, but it's just so different to me than Star Wars. Star Wars is me, you know, being escapist and having fun. Star Trek is if I want to really think about something, I guess. I'm not saying Star Wars is dumb or anything. I don't have an opinion like that. I'm just saying that one is a little more cerebral than the other and is meant to be more philosophical. All right, that's one door down. At least I think. Let's see how that looks on the side over here. Oh yeah. Oh, that's lovely. That is lovely. I love that. That is fantastic. Okay, let's get that other door done. Like I said, becoming really obvious that this bag was all about getting doors done. There isn't really anything else going on with these pieces. You know, I'll tell you how I really like came to it is by watching the Star Trek movies because I have, yeah, because I'll tell you that it's almost an insurmountable task to sit down and try to watch all of the TV that Star Trek has to offer, and I've never done it. I have come to it through movies. However, I'll warn you, the original Star Trek the motion picture is kind of a slog. It was, yeah, it's kind of a slog. So I don't even know if I could suggest you start there. I may actually suggest that you start with the second Star Trek movie, which doesn't even acknowledge the first one. Like you don't really even need to know anything that happened in the first movie. So if you start with Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, you can get hooked right in. There's nothing you really need to know too much. It's just, you just go right from there. But it's something that's that I think you'll get a lot of enjoyment out of. But it's all about the characters. It's all about the journey. It's not so much the spectacle. There's plenty of spectacle in Star Trek movies, but that's not the focus. That's not the driving force. My favorite Star Trek movie is Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. That is a spectacular movie if you get the chance to watch it. Star Trek VI is unbelievably good. It's one of the only times you'll ever hear somebody say that, oh, my favorite one in that series is insert series here, 6. That seems like an unlikely statement, right? Oh, I really like Star Cruiser 14. It's not something you would hear someone say. Insert random number here. Oh yeah, Star Basher 18. Oh, that's the best one. That 18th try, they really figured that out. They really cracked that story on the 18th try. God bless them. Took them 17 movies to get there, but boy, did they ever get there. You hear my cats meowing, wondering where I'm at. They're letting me know I've built Lego too late into the night, and they're very upset. Why are you doing this? For the love of God. Ooh, the biggest. Hmm. Well, maybe the biggest one I've ever put together was the Ghostbusters Firehouse, which was an absolutely massive set. That took forever and ever, and took me and Brandon, the other guy on the channel, putting it together. So that was massive. That was huge. Um, Another one was the Pirates of Barracuda Bay set that I live streamed on this channel. That was a huge undertaking, or at least it felt like a huge undertaking. There's been a few others, but honestly, the biggest Lego set that I own, I've still not assembled. I have it in the box still. I haven't worked up the courage to try it just yet. And that's the Harry Potter Diagon Alley set. And I feel like that I'm going to work up the courage pretty soon. But until then, I'm still not quite convinced myself to start that journey. And that's a massive set of a bunch of individual buildings that you build to create an entire, like, city street. So that's just a whole nother animal. I have found that I used to become incredibly agitated and exhausted building like really big Lego sets and become overwhelmed and stressed out. And I just decided not to approach it like that anymore. Used to, I felt, I don't know, I felt like I was racing against a clock or something. I don't know what was wrong with me, but it stressed me out. And it took me building for a few years to get over that. And I'm not sure why that was ever a thing for me, but it was, I don't know, I think when I was first doing it, it's like it's like some of your motor skills aren't quite adjusted to it just yet, and then you get kind of in the rhythm of it and you're not as stressed out about it anymore. I still get stressed out about sets where there's just a massive amount of sticker placement, and to see the evidence of that, you can just go back and watch any of my old live streams and you'll see me struggling to get those stickers just right. But that seems to be the difference for me between enjoyable builds and miserable builds, because you can very well have either. You know, the '89 Batmobile was a huge undertaking as well, or it definitely felt like a huge undertaking at the time. So that felt like it took a long time to do because of the complexity of the build. It really did seem like it was an ongoing process that just continued and continued and then continued some more. It also wasn't very fun to build something that was, yeah, the innards of it were multicolored to make it easier, but just having to do black on black on black on black on black, it was really hard to perceive progress as you were building. And that's a funny statement to make, but there's definitely a difference. Like with this, where there's more of a light color, I can actually perceive that things are coming together and things are being built up. But with the Batmobile being as massive as it was, the '89 Batmobile, I was struggling to see it come together, which is a funny feeling, a funny thing to say, but very, very true. And part of it is perception, you know. Are you the biggest slog of a set I ever built was the '66 Batcave set, which I shouldn't have ever bought in the first place, and eventually sold off because it was just, I didn't like how it turned out, and I thought I could modify it and make it more like the way I wanted, and I couldn't, and there was a lot of problems with that set. It was a total slog to build. It looked unfinished, and people didn't really buy it. It was put on extreme clearance. It was crazy to see a set that was done as like an 18 plus kind of set at that kind of price point be put on all that crazy clearance. And I should have known that I wasn't going to get anything out of it, and I didn't. Still a massive mistake, me buying that set. Always trust your instincts on that stuff. If you don't think you're going to like a set, you can't force yourself to like a set. You're going to know it. Or at least me, I always know when I'm trying to force myself to like something like that. And it was just a bad plan on my part, like a really bad plan. That's okay. You live and you learn. All right. Okay, almost got another door done here. All right. Yep. Okay. Very few pieces left. You know, what happened at the Oscars was a horrible thing. Shouldn't have happened. But at the same time, I'm callous enough to admit that I love the memes that came out of it so much that to me it was worth the slap. Yeah, it really is coming together. I'm really thrilled with it. I'm just getting distracted talking about the Oscar slap. The memes have been worth everything. I've never seen such insanity as the Will Smith memes and the Chris Rock memes that have resulted. It's like every day I'm finding 2 or 3 new ones that I'm sending to all my friends. Like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you heard about this? That's what it feels like. Okay, time to attach this door. Nope. If I can get it on there. There we go. All right. Now it shows us putting 2 little filler panels right here. Fill in that kind of blank detail. Turn it around and do the same for the other side. Okay. All right, looking good. All right, I was wondering how they were going to handle this. You've got to get a connection from here to here. And this is where the Lego, this is where the Lego Kuso, whatever you want to call it at that time, model, this is where it fell apart, the minifigure scaled version of this that they did years and years ago. They couldn't quite get these connections right in minifigure scale. I'm not really sure how you would do it today even, but they looked awful and kind of ruined the look of the whole thing. All right, so connect one here, and you connect the other over here. And then next, I see what they want you to do. You connect this down here, and this one down here. Then you snap it together in the middle of both pieces. That's an interesting way to connect. I didn't even know if that would work. Let me see. Can I make this? It's kind of frustrating. Okay. All right. That's all snapped on, and kind of got to straighten it out a little and kind of get the pieces rotated just right to get everything matched up. Yeah. There we go. So now you've got a pretty reasonable kind of transition right there. Yeah, that's what we needed. Little cover up on these to get them to have more of an illusion that, you know, that they're kind of just one piece. Yeah, that's what it needed. I thought, okay, that's looking a little incomplete. There we go. Oh, he would be fantastic. Bryan Cranston can do it all. I sincerely believe that. There's nothing he can't do. He's your one-stop shop, man. He can do it all. You know, it's funny. I ended up with one of these from that bag, but I don't trust it. Like when I see any kind of sizable piece like this that I've been left with, I'm wondering why. And I think I figured it out just from yep. All right, I'll show you guys. See that? I didn't somehow or another. I think this might have busted off, and I didn't realize it earlier. So I'm gonna see if I can just nudge that in right there, without. Look at that. Yeah. This is what I was saying earlier. Never, ever, ever trust when you have extra pieces. All right, let's see. Well, the doors, this one's just going to come back down. This one's still kind of hanging on. I like how they kind of they kind of ease down, or at least this other one did. That's probably something you can kind of work on and get the pieces fit. It's more of a gradual drop down, right? Definitely more of a gradual thing. Okay, well, this would be a fantastic time to stop and see if we can do that last part, that part 3, to complete this trilogy of build videos. It's been really fun. There's even though there's just a couple more bags to go, there's a whole lot of sticker detail and things that I know will, and I was looking at features that'll make it last a little longer. So until next time, I'll see you.